Good evening. We're with the Four Corners 912, and tonight we're going to have an interview with the commissioners, candidates for District 1 and 3. To start off, our usual thing is let's salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those of you that's watching us, we've got a Zoom and we have Mesa Media, both on Facebook. So tune in to one of those. We sent out information in the past. Now, for those watching, this is not a debate. I know some of you saw a debate this morning with a couple of candidates over in Ignacio for Bobert and Cora. This is not a debate. This is an interview. We want to find out what they think and how they believe, because what happens down the road, decisions come up on things that we have no idea what's going to come. And how do they believe and how do they think about certain, we call core issues of concern. That tells you how they will make decisions in the future on things that we know nothing about today. I'm going to start off with just a few things that kind of reflects my thinking of what's going on. That a lot of times we don't see the importance. We think of counties as being that little section down in the corner of a state somewhere. And in the past, it's always, so many people talk about, well, they're good old boy club, and somebody gets your driveway paved and whatever. And that's really what the county's been about. Well, it's not. And these days, things have changed in the entire country, in the state, and the future is really up for grabs. And where are we going to go? And some things we don't think about. Montezuma County has been changing over the years. When I grew up here, I'm born here, too long ago, back in 40. And it was agriculture. My granddad and mother had a homestead up here back in 18. And man, it's not the same place at all. And we think about 27% of the land in Montezuma County is in private ownership. That's it. The rest of it is in federal control, Indian Lands and Forest Service and BLM and Park Service. So only 27% is what the commission actually, you might say, controls or governs. But the impact of that, the rest of that land is on their shoulders as well, but they can't do anything about it. They're concerned with the health, safety, and they say welfare. It's well-being or economic well-being of the entire county. The interesting thing come up is, again, my thinking, we think of little Montezuma County. Montezuma County's land base actually is twice the size of the state of Rhode Island. It's the same size as the state of Delaware. We're not just a little county. We're the same size of two states in the United States. We have the same issues: power needs, transportation needs, water needs, health and safety needs, all the people. The same levels that right here in our county. Right now, we're going through a drought. Another thing people don't think about is Cortez in the lower part of the Montezuma Valley, which is the private land section, has the same rainfall precipitation as Tucson, Arizona. We're part of the high desert, and what happens in governance of this county with water and other issues is the same as Tucson. We think of dry Tucson. Well, the private land and here in this section is the same as Tucson. What the only difference is elevation and temperature. We're cold dry and they're a hot dry. That's all the difference. With the increasing growth, which we've been seeing, people moving in from Arizona and Tucson, coming here to come to the wet and all the verdant green fields we have, are finding out that it's really not any different. We're just as dry. But they expect more. They expect the county to provide paved roads, water, law enforcement, all these things that they brought with their ideas from the city. And that's taking place here. So things have changed. So I bring that up just so we look at the county. We need to look at it differently and the needs and the governance. The one thing that we want to bring up right here at the beginning, as we ask some questions to try to find out what your thinking is, we have a new, it was last year, what you swear for when you sign up to be whoever gets elected for county commissioner, your oath of office, they changed two little things in it. And a couple of you, well, I think, yeah, Mr. Koppenhafer, you signed this one when you just got put in office here just recently. And Jim, you signed an old one. It's different than this one. And you two, if you're elected, you will be signing the new one. As I do, and then they give you a selection. It used to say, I do swear by the ever-living God. They didn't take it out, but they gave you the choice. You have to pick that I do swear, affirm, or swear by the living God. And I will support the Constitution of the United States of the state of Colorado. And they added this in. And this is important as we look at questions down the road here. And the laws of the state of Colorado. That was not in there before. Before it was just you swore to uphold the Constitution of the state of Colorado and the United States. But now they added the laws as well, assuming that the laws are constitutional. That's a big assumption. Let's see. So you might want to keep that in mind as we discuss tonight some of the issues that we're concerned about. Let's just start off with, introducing yourselves, and just a quick background. And old Bud kind of laughed at me when I says, what qualifies you to be on the governing board for the county? Let's start over here with Liz. Let's keep it brief and hold the mic. You get the mic up there right by you. Almost like you're trying to lick on it.
Okay. I was born and raised here. I've had a lot of interest in Montezuma County. I've served on other boards. Fair Board, I was on the Fair Board that built the fairgrounds. I served on Canyons of the Ancient National Monument Advisory Board, representing private land interests because we do live in McElmo Canyon. We are surrounded by federal land, which is Canyon, the Ancient National Monument, and we had a real concern about the private property. And I served on that for 2 years. I just have a time in my life I feel like I can give something back to the county and the people of Montezuma County, and that's why I'm here.
Tim?
Well, I too was raised in a county. I'm a third generation. My granddad came here in 1917, and we've been here since then. I've served, I was a member of the Pleasant View Fire Department for a number of years. I've served on the Cortez School Board. I'm a member of serving on the board of directors for Farmers Telephone. I feel like my qualifications are I'm also at an opportunity at a time where I can serve. I have a desire to serve, a great interest and concern for what goes on in this county, and I feel like I can listen and make valid and good decisions.
Mr. Koppenhafer.
Welcome, everybody, and I'm Gerald Copenhaper. I was born and raised here in Montezuma County, down on a farm ranch just south of Cortez. Graduated from high school here in Montezuma County, and I proceeded to go to college and get a veterinary degree and come back here and practice and raise my family here in this county. Over the years since I came back here, I've been on the livestock board. I've served as your commissioner for this district from 2004 to 2012. Resource Advisory Council, MVI, which I'm president of that board at the present time and been on it for about the last 7 or 8 years. Numerous other boards that I've served on during that time with those groups, and the Water Roundtable and all of these things. I think you stay involved and you find out all the different things that's going on in the area, and those all help you do this job. You've got to keep up on what everybody else is going through and doing in this county and the whole surrounding area. And if you get involved with all those things, it helps you to do this job in a manner that helps the citizens with this county.
Good. Jim? Mr.
Incumbent candidate for County Commissioner of District 1. Like the rest of these people, I was born and raised here, educated here, and better. Finished 30 years of public service through the fire service. Retired in 2011 and have come back full-time 100% of the time to this community, which I never left, and have served on numerous boards. And the last 3.5 years have been the biggest challenge of my life with COVID-19 and all of the changes that have come through the legislature. So my background and my history are by far more relevant to any government job that there can ever be as far as it relates to County Commission. Like you said earlier, the change is coming, the change is fast, and to stay on top of it requires 100% dedication, and that's who I am. Thank you.
Thank you all. Just before we get going into the regular questions, I hope we can keep this nice and make your point and move on to the next one. Some people have a hard time shutting up. We don't want to shut you up when we get all the information we get out of you, but you talk too long, and we're going to be here a lot longer. I was hoping to get out of here by 9 o'clock. And the sooner the better, but we want to hear, but get your points and let's move. Let's start off with really quick. We'll just kind of work our way down, Mr. Lanier. What do you believe is the authority and responsibility of the county commissions?
I think the first responsibility they have is to uphold the Constitution, to follow the Constitution in governing the county, to set policy for the county. We need to make sure that the laws are followed, and we need to find a way to serve the whole community. The Ute Mountain Tribe, the people that live in the rural areas, the people that live in the cities or the towns. Doesn't matter what party they are, we need to be able to listen and to serve them. And we need to set the policy and give the people as much freedom as we can, not overburden them with regulations.
Okay, Mr. Koppenhafer?
I think that the main thing that you're doing as a county commissioner is guaranteeing the health and safety and welfare of the people of this county. And that's what your government should be in that manner, following the Constitution and govern it in that manner to guarantee that those things for the people. That's the biggest thing that you need to be doing.
Mr. Candelaria?
Sure. For me, it's very simple. First of all, I go by my oath of office, which you just stated earlier, is to follow the Constitution of the United States and the state of Colorado, which was the oath of office that I signed. Then we actually have, we hold all three branches of government at times. We're judiciary, legislative, and we work with all of those through statutes, through the laws that have been implemented and handed down. We just finished a 120-day session of the Colorado. Within that, we're going to have a lot of new laws. 657 laws were just handed down or were presented this year. They did not all pass, some were PI'd. So as we go through that, those are the things that we have. We serve all three branches of the government. We serve by the Constitution. We serve by our land use code, and then we have a fiduciary responsibility to all the citizens that pay taxes. Those are the things that we encompass with decisions that we make on a daily basis.
Ms. Tozier?
I think the Constitution is something that we all have to remember and follow. I think in a lot of areas that's kind of slipping a little bit. Our responsibility is to the people and to listen to them and to their needs. Safety is a very big concern in the county. Keeping taxes in check so that people can afford to live, especially in this day and time. Things are kind of out of control in the United States. But I think that I think we can do it here. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now, or see if I can read my writing here. How will you represent all the people in controversial opinions on issues? What basis, along this line, what basis will your decision be based upon? Everybody wants the right answer, and everybody has a different answer. So how will you deal with that? Who owns the people? Who's we the people that you represent? Mr. Koppenhafer, I think it's down to you to start off.
Okay. Well, depending on the issue, if the issue is constitutional, what they're asking you to do, and the regulations that we have in this county with our land use code and the Constitution, you have to follow those. And if you stay and follow those, you will make the right decision for the majority of the people of this county. You're not going to make everybody happy, but you've got to follow the laws that we have here to follow, and make your decision based on that, not your personal feelings on what the Constitution and the law says that we have available for us to work with.
Mr. Candelaria.
That was a pretty simple question for me. First of all, everything that I make a decision is based on facts. And what do the facts, do they either comply or not comply? It's not any emotion with me. I'm not nothing is based on an emotion, it's based on 100% fact. And does it comply with the land use code? If it complies with the land use code, you can have that decision based and made in your favor. If it doesn't, you're probably not going to get that decision or the way that you want it. Now, there are ways to work around it or work through it, but it's very easy. It's fact-based, and like I said earlier, by a fiduciary responsibility that we have.
Ms. Tozier.
You asked how I could listen to other people in other walks of life. I have worked in many different areas within the county. I worked in hospitality, and a lot of people were not in what I would call my comfort zone. They came from different countries, different walks of life, and I got along good with them. I was able to listen. And in my job, some of them had issues and stuff, and one thing I always practiced, use common sense when listening to them. Listen to them, hear them out, and see. And I think that's the same way with the commission. Listen to their problems, if it's within reason, and if there is a question, it needs to go before the entire board and a decision be made. Follow the Constitution, and you'll know. But I have worked with a lot of different people in a lot of different walks of life, and I think I can get along with people throughout Montezuma County.
You're up, Mr. Lanier.
I think we need to listen to people. We need to validate their concerns, but that doesn't always mean that we agree with them or that they will get what they want. But I think it's important to listen to them and let them know that they are heard. And then, as it has been stated tonight, follow the land use codes, follow the law, follow the Constitution.
Oh, boy. Voting integrity has been a big issue this year. It's going to be, and it's still going on. And in fact, we just had a bill passed in the state legislature to supposedly secure that integrity in voting. In fact, that bill was passed, and I just checked, and it has gone to the governor's office. Which one was that? That was on one of them? Oh, there it is.
Senate Bill 153.
Yeah, 153. It went to the governor's office on the 20th. And it's laying there, so he has 10 days to sign it, or it becomes law, or to veto it. What will he do? We'll see. But anyway, voting integrity is a big issue, and whether that bill passed or vetoed or whatever, it will continue to be an issue with local people. I used to get calls back in the last election was, is my vote actually going to be counted? Is our county going to make sure my vote is counted and right? And we have a good, I believe, we have a very good current clerk's office and election board, and they're doing a very good job. But the issue came with the state being in control. This bill gives the state more control if it's passed. So how will you, this is going to be down to starting off with Jim here. How will you, what actions can you take and should the VOC take to ensure voting integrity is protected in Montezuma County? Is there anything the county can do and what do you think they should do so that when people call me or call you, is this really sound and with no cheating going on? What is your opinion on what the county can and should do?
Well, first of all, that goes to another elected official who is not here with us tonight. We as county commissioners only hold the purse strings to the county clerk. So that is another elected official, which that question should actually be directed to that elected official. However, we have had numerous presentations to us about the election integrity. Senate Bill 153 was backed by the CCCA, the Colorado County Clerks Association, and that bill will probably be signed by the governor. It will not be vetoed. I think that was one of the questions you asked. The biggest thing that we hear, that we've got complaints, is the outside internet connection and the integrity based on, is that really true? Is there an outside internet connection or not? Within our facility, I believe, and I will back our clerk, I think she has done a fantastic job, and her staff. I think our integrity is there. The components are within the machines that are there, the Dominion machines, they do have an outside if the Wi-Fi is available and can be accessed. I'm not a computer guy, and I'm not going to tell you it can or it cannot be accessed. However, everything that our county clerk is doing, I think they are doing a good job with their staff. And, you know, the other side of that coin is what do you do if we get rid of all of these machines that are in question? There have been some forensic audits done in the state of Colorado, and as to this day, nothing has been proven that those were tampered with. So we probably have anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million worth of machines in that clerk's office just for voting. They held a today count, if you wanted to see that. Any of the candidates could have went to that if they wanted to. You do hand counts, you do machine counts, and I would almost assure you, once you've been through that, you realize that human error is way greater than what the machine error is. So, again, long-winded answer, but really that's a county clerk's elected official, and it goes to them. As all we do as a BOCC is hold the purse strings to their budget.
Ms. Tozier?
This is a question I've had a lot of people ask, and a lot of people think that they would trust in-person voting. It doesn't matter if it was counted by a machine or by human beings. They just like the idea of in-person voting, showing your your driver's license and photo ID so that everybody knows who you are. And I think that's a concern that I've heard most of, is how do they know that that's really me? And, I don't know. I'm one that doesn't trust machinery too good. I do everything by hand. Most people would laugh if they saw what I did in my job now, my big ledger book and all. But I can come up with an answer within about 5 to 10 minutes if somebody asks me a question. And I've had government agencies contact me about different things, and they say that sale barns that are on a computer, it takes them 2 weeks to find it. I can do it a lot quicker. And I think it's just the trust of the people. I hope that everything's good. I think Kim is. I personally don't think that we have an issue here, but I think bigger places could. Our internet service probably isn't quite as good as it is in big cities and stuff where things could get hacked and stuff. But, it is a concern, and a lot of people are asking this question. Thank you.
Mr. Lanier?
I too have heard a lot of concern about the voter integrity. I also have 100% trust in the clerk's office, Kim Purcell, but I'm not sure I have that same trust in the Dominion voting machines, where they're controlled by an outside source, or where they can be, the data can be manipulated by an outside source. I've often thought that the way we used to do it, as Ms. Tozier said, but go in person, show your ID, and vote. And there's a lot of people that feel that way. I know the commissioners, from what I understand, have the ability to approve or disapprove the use of these machines. I think that's something that needs to be looked at very carefully.
Mr. Koppenhafer?
Well, like Jim said, that the clerk's office basically controls all the machines and the voting and everything. But what we can do as commissioners is try to make sure that the integrity is there and that there's no internet connection hooked up to these machines here locally. All we can try to do is make sure that is happening and test the machines and see if the vote counts come out right. You can hand count so many and put so many through that machine, just like what Kim's doing, and to verify the integrity of these machines. Now, I'm not computer savvy enough to be able to tell you whether somebody could hack into that or not by the Wi-Fi. I don't know. They can do some really amazing things with. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm not. But I think you have to have faith in our local people and the fact that they're looking out for the best interests of us. That's why Kim's been elected as many times as she has, and I think she's done a good job over the years. And to be honest with you, I don't think if she thought there was anything wrong with these systems, we'd be doing something else.
Actually, you stop and think about it, not too many people. Why would anybody want to tap into our election? We only have about 18,000 votes out of the state. Don't make much difference. But we get concerned, does my vote count? And the voting issue is on everybody's mind when things don't go right, especially. Okay, another big issue that is kind of broken up in several different questions, I think. Today, economics is a big thing. Inflation and what's going on in the state and the world, and how everybody's manipulating the dollar and our economic situation. And one of the things with the county commission is the economic well-being of the county. It's one of the key goals. So actually, you go back in the whole country, not the county here. In fact, we're probably ahead of them. In the world, our economic system, we have drifted so far from our founding principles of capitalism and free market into socialism. And it's just been a gradual transition, and we don't really think much about it. But we're so far in there. And so it brings up the question, and as we're looking down the road, I guess is in my point being earlier, is how do you feel? What do you think? Because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. What is your basic economic philosophy? How do you look at economics, your philosophy, what it is and how it should be, and particularly as it relates to our local government, in this case, county commission? What is your philosophy of economics? We're starting with you, Ms. Tozier.
Well, if you ask my husband, he'll say that I put everything in savings, and he gets real frustrated, but I was always taught save for a rainy day, and if there's any way you can save, I think it's good because you can have rainy days and stuff. I think that the commission, we have a lot of programs in this county that are very, very important. They're vital, and services that are very vital and stuff, and I think that in this day and time, especially now with the way the economy is, we're going to have to get a little creative and hunt and look and find new ways to support some of these programs. And I think that there are ways. We're going to have to make cuts across the board too, but I think that you just really need to sit back and kind of not get real anxious about spending money. Just keep it going, and as best you can, cut where you can, and look for other monies to help you out. Thank you.
Mr. Lanier.
Well, I think as we've heard before, the county needs to balance its budget. We need to be able to operate on the money that we have that's available. And we need to find ways to bring new revenue in, whatever that may be. But it's very important that the county does have a balanced budget, that we're not operating at a deficit. I don't know what happens to counties that go bankrupt. I don't know, but my guess would be that somebody else calls the shots when that happens. And we wouldn't want that.
Mr. Koppenhafer.
Well, being involved in Montezuma County when we went through 2008 with the downturn and everything that happened at that time, we had the same type of situation as we have right now. There was reduced revenues, and Montezuma County had to cut back and get frugal about their way they did business, and that's probably what's going to happen again with the downturn with Kinder Morgan's payments and stuff. we're going to be operating on a lot less money than we have in the past, unless we find some other type of revenue source, such as a sales tax or something else, which we're not going to do at this time. But at some point, Montezuma County is probably going to have to face that issue, because you cannot depend on one taxpayer to pay over 50% of the taxes in this county. If you're relying on that, someday it's going to hurt you, and that's what is happening right now. When I was in there on the commission before, we were putting back money and trying to save back in case this happened, that we would have a downturn or Kinder Morgan would go away. If that field's not going to last forever out there. So at some point in time, this county's going to have to support itself. And we're going to have to look for some solutions to get it to that point. And be frugal about the way we're spending the money and the projects we get into. We don't control a lot of these social programs that come through the county. That's all pass-through money. We don't have any say in controlling those programs and how they qualify for those programs. And I think I think a lot of them are kind of out of control in my mind. We gave out well over $1 million in food stamps in the last month. So when you consider how much that is for no more larger than the population of this county, it's a lot, as far as I'm concerned. There's something wrong with the system.
Mr. Candelaria.
Okay, I'm going to look at it just a little bit of a different viewpoint as far as economics. First of all, we work with Region 9 and we develop our SEDS, our Community Economic Development Strategies. We just recently did that in December, I believe, or November. And we prioritize our strategies for what we feel that would strengthen our community. We just put in 3 applications for CDS, Congressional Direct Spending. The first one, looking out for agriculture because of the drought. And with that, what I'm meaning is that it's for our Free Out of Fight program. We will get rid of or try to eradicate, I don't know if we possibly can do that, but we'll try, to get rid of salt cedar and Russian olive, therefore putting the water that they drink, which they are horrible water suckers, back into our economy within agriculture to give the people that are growing and sustaining life off of that a better chance. We also, one of the biggest things that we fight in this community right now is our drug problem, fentanyl. We need to bolster our sheriff's office. We need to have more spending on that to help those guys out with what they're doing in the drug task force. And that second one was for the CIP program, which just kicked off a couple of weeks ago, which is our community intervention program. A lot of the people around here right now that are dealing with law enforcement have not necessarily committed a crime. Therefore, we do not need a sheriff's officer, a police officer there with them. They need a clinician or an EMT to get them the help that they need to actually take care of the health and welfare of our community. Thirdly, which is still a economic driver, whether you like bike paths or hiking paths or walking paths, it's one of the things that drives the state of Colorado, and we have a lot of biking paths around here, but it would be the Paso Mesa Verde. It's been being worked on for, at least the last 6 to 8 years, and hopefully the site is in with that soon. So that was part of the 3 things that we just submitted as a congressional direct spending to try and help to get those things put together so that we can help with the economy of this community, because like you stated earlier, 27% is all we get as a tax base. We don't have a sales tax. Therefore, the property owners bear 100% of the burden, and if we can make the economy better for those people paying those, it helps us as a community.
Thank you. A comment was made, and it's one thing that I think a lot of our people in the county don't realize, and there's a lot of flack comes out to you guys, we hear it, and that is a lot of pass-through monies comes in the county. You mentioned that, Mr. Koppenhafer, and I've been sitting in the county commission meeting for about 10 years now, trying to be a thorn in your side, I don't know. But you listen to that and you see it happen. And if people will look at their tax notice and look at, it's all county to them. And not realizing it's all these districts, whether it's a school district, whether it's the water district, and all these different things are on there. And the county really doesn't get but a small portion of that total tax bill. But you take the flak. But we need to have, in my opinion, whoever gets it back in or on the commission, people need to understand what the commission's role is and what they actually control. They don't control that $1 million a month coming in for welfare, EBT cards. And you oversee it, but you don't control it. That's something that I hope you guys can get straightened out with the public. Probably never will, but if you work on it. Moving on, what did they come up with here? Okay, continuing on with economics, some of these are going to be kind of duplicate maybe for you in your answers. Can you justify, because economics and what you do with it, can you justify using taxpayer funds or taxes you get in for economic development within the government-supported projects? Maybe that's a good project, so should the county use some tax monies to support a development project? That sounds good, but it uses tax monies to do it. In some cases, even private businesses. It may be a really good investment should the county use tax monies for that. I think we're down to Mr. Lanier.
You know, I guess I don't, I'm not sure I have an answer to that, but probably some money would be spent, would be a wise investment on economic development. It would have to, in my mind, I would need to know that it's a pretty solid investment, not just chasing a dream. Because anything we can bring into this county is going to help the tax base here. There's one of the things that I hear a lot of and see a lot of is that the young people that graduate from high school, if they want to have a decent living, they have to go somewhere else to do it. And we have a hard time keeping people here. That somehow that needs to change, whether some other kind of industry we need to be able to bring some other kind of industry in that would have a base to keep our youth here or the people here. I guess I don't have a real clear answer on whether I would support tax money or not. Probably some.
Mr. Koppenhafer.
Well, I think you can, like in our situation right now, we have an economic development person that makes things available to people that inquire about doing business here. I think we have if you use the situation of that development person to have material and have the things that available for people that inquire about possibly putting a business here, if you can make all the sources that we have and all the resources that we possibly have for that business and show them that that's here. But as far as actually spending tax money to help that business move here or get started, I'm not in favor of that. I think that you're messing with the capitalistic base of the county whenever you start putting money into businesses. But as far as providing a resource of what's available here for those businesses to move here and possibly helping them to acquire a place and the resources that they need, I have no problem with that. But I'm not in favor of putting money into different businesses to try to get them to come here.
Mr. Candelaria.
Let's see, I would have to just say in the last 3.5 years that I have voted no. We do not do that. We take care of defense and commerce, which is basically the grounds of the Constitution. That's what we take care of, and we have gotten a lot of flack from that because we have a lot of people that like private playgrounds and they want us to fund them all, but we do not do that. So commerce and defense is basically where our taxpayer money goes into. We do have an economic development coordinator. We have an economic team set up. So we move regulations out of the way. We help people to understand what they have to deal with. But it comes down to true capitalism at that point in time, and we just move hurdles out of their way.
Ms. Tozier.
I am totally against putting any money into anything, especially right now in this time with the way the economy is and everything. Granted, you need to make the resources available as to rather a business like that could survive or flourish in Montezuma County. I think that's good, but I'm totally against putting money into anything right at this time. Just information and let them make their decision.
Okay, moving ahead. With all those answers, how best do you think the county can help do economic development? What can the county do to actually encourage and help out any economic development? That goes to Mr. Koppenhafer.
Well, I think, like I said before, the biggest thing is that have a person that's available that can show the resources that we have here and the possibility for them to come to this area. And if they're willing to come to this area, then we can do some things to move some hurdles out of their way to help them get going and get started as far as regulations, that sort of thing, to make them, but they still have to follow the land use code and do the things necessary. But just providing a person to show our resources and what we have available here in this area and how much our workforce is, that's the biggest thing we can do.
Mr. Candelaria.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. So first of all, we do support and we make the decisions of the lodger's tax, which benefits Mesa Verde Country, all of the chambers of commerce, except for I believe we did not vote, or the group the committee did not bring forth helping the Cortez Chamber because they have apparently enough dues on their own to facilitate economic development on their own. The Board of County Commissioners do make the decision on that funding that does help get our community recognized locally and abroad with businesses that are wanting to come in. So we do approve that funding, but that funding is approved by a lodger's tax. So it's not the individual property owners paying that tax right here. I'll give you an example of one that hasn't worked out great for us is the Ironwood facility up off of County Road T and 145. We wanted that business. We need that business. Our logging industry is paramount, and the only thing we did there was waive some road impact fees to kind of help them get started, but it wasn't a tax that we were spending taxpayer money. We were waiving a fee to help them get going, and now it has turned into somewhat of a struggle for the commission because we're dealing with it. We've pulled their high impact and special use permit because they were not following the land use code. And we are definitely, this commission is not afraid of pulling somebody's permit if they are not following the land use code. So, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. We want businesses here, but when they do get here, we want them to function properly.
Ms. Tozier.
I agree with what Jim just said too. I don't think that, I think that our responsibility is to get the information out there, tell them what's available, what we might possibly be able to waive and stuff, what the resources are for that type of business. I mean, we have a lot here. We've got a lot of Anasazi ruins and stuff, and people are really into that. Where I live, it's a big thing. There are a lot of people down there. They are building a lot of new rentals properties. There's one going in right across from my house right now, and it is a monster. And these people that are coming are mostly from Europe, and they love it. I hope it works for him. You know, it's great. But, you know, the county's not put anything into it. This was done on a private basis, and I think that's what it should be done. But, you know, somebody walks in here, they don't know what people are like here. You need to have some information available to them, and they can make the decision if they think it's going to work to start a business here or not.
Mr. Lanier.
Well, I agree with what's been said tonight. You know, I'm not in favor of paying anybody to come or putting money in a business, but I think we need to exploit what we have here. The area, the beauty of it, the sunshine, the open spaces. And have an economic development team that does provide that information to people that want to come here and make those decisions whether they want to put a business here or not.
Okay, moving ahead. Back to the issues of our economic downturns. We're in one, and I think everybody recognizes that. And how bad it'll get, I don't know. In fact, I had a friend call me. We're doing some work for her. She's over in Guam working for the military schools. And she says, well, off-base gas cost me $7 a gallon. And my electric rate is going up 20% next month. We're faced with some issues. Should the county government budgets and expenditures be exempt from economic downturns, cycles like we're in right now? The money's not there. How would you handle a reduction in county revenues and or increased inflation costs? We don't have the money. How do you handle it? Jim.
So, we're wrestling with that right now in the commission. We're looking at all of the departments, and anybody that's bleeding, I'll use the term bleeding, we've got to stop it. We've got to plug the holes. So we can't just keep subsidizing departments. So the county government has 22 governments right here in Montezuma County. We have everything from road and bridge, public health, sheriff's department, natural resources, the list goes on and on. A lot of it that we can create fees because we have to cover our costs. And I'll give you an example right now. The sheriff came to us last week and we approved the increase for inmates to $100. Our cost that we were charging was $75, and our cost that it was costing us today was $89. Those types of things have to be brought to the BOCC because then we are just bleeding. The taxpayers of this county are paying for the inmates, and those have to be paid for by themselves. Our landfill is an enterprise zone. with the costs that are going up, our fees are being raised down there to take care of the fees for the landfill. So every place that we have, we're trying to plug the holes to stop the bleeding so that we are being fiduciary and responsible with the dollars that we have. Now, obviously, we can't control the inflation cost, but we will work within our budget that we have to work with here in Montezuma County.
Ms. Lanier.
This is really tough. It's like the fairgrounds. I don't believe there's been an increase in the fees at the fairgrounds for many, many years, and I hear rumor that it's going to double and stuff. I don't agree that's too steep, but I do think that it needs to go up. You know, there needs to be an increase, and that will help. I think we need to get more stuff in here to use the fairgrounds and to help offset the expenses. That's just one part of the county. There's a lot that there's no way you can get return on. It's a tough situation, and everybody's in it worldwide, and I don't know what the total answer is.
Mr. Lanier.
Well, it would be nice if the county was exempt from the inflation, but we're not. I think we just have to plug the holes. We have to look at everything and make sure that each entity is able to support itself, whatever that takes.
Mr. Koppenhafer.
Well, with all the inflation and stuff that's going on right now, you know, the county will never be exempt from it because we're buying food at the jail. We're supplying all these things throughout the county, whether we're buying oil to chip seal the roads or buying fuel for the deputies or whatever. We're right in the middle of this inflation just as much as everybody else is, and there's no way you can be exempt from it. But we have to stay within our budget. We'll develop a budget, and we'll have to stay within that budget. We cannot print money, and we're gonna figure out a budget that we can handle, and we'll get back to that. If we have to cut some services, that's what will happen. Some things will have to be reduced. That's all that we can do. If we don't have the money there to do it, we're going to cut back to what we can provide to citizens of this county.
Okay, moving ahead. Let's see. Jim. It's going to be Ms. Lanier's start off this time.
Mrs. Tozier.
Thank you. looking at signs and looking at faces. We all get to it. I like to think we all make it.
I already have a Mrs. Lanier over here, so I don't.
The one that upset her. Getting old is really tough, I'll tell you. Zedekiah even aided me out here a little bit ago with my issues of getting old. Okay, this brings up, remember what I said earlier about the change in your oath. Every year, this year was no exception, and in fact, I would almost say this year is taking a little extra effort at it. The state and federal legislators annually pass arbitrary and capricious laws and regulations that truly are not compliant with the Constitution and or inconsistent with the basic tenets of the Constitutions. But they pass them as if they believe that they are because they passed it. And that's a little problem a lot of them think because they passed a law that's constitutional. But it's not. Does the county commission have a responsibility to protect the citizens from these capricious laws? And what would you do in light of your new oath of office? And any one of these laws, the famous ones they come up with a lot of times is gun laws and numerous other laws that many feel are they're not constitutional. They're passed. They're signed by the governor. And what do? You're as county commissioner, because it says you have to support the laws now under your new oath of office. This Tozier.
Well, there's just a lot of those laws out there that I totally disagree with. And I would just say we just need to stand up to the state and say, hey, show them why these things do not work. And I don't know that we could ever get anybody to change people's mind. People don't think right. And common sense is something that I see people do not have anymore. And it's I don't know if it's the school system, if it's the way people are raised, if it's kids on their little phones all the time, I don't know. But people are different, totally different than when I was raised. And I don't know the answer, but I kind of get a little bit feisty sometimes. And I would say that I would probably throw some of this right back at Governor Polis and say, hey, buddy, let's sit down and talk about this. I don't know if it'd do any good.
How would you do that?
I don't know.
Pick up the phone, or what would you do?
You know what? I've been known to do that, actually. Yeah, I have. My husband and I have done a junior rodeo at the fairgrounds for 25 years. We bring kids in from all 4 states. And in 2020, it was a rough year for those kids. 2021 wasn't much better. But in 2020, I read an article about Forey J. Smith in a rodeo sports news magazine. He plays on Yellowstone. He's the the bunkhouse boss. And I said to Don, I said, these kids need to hear something positive. And I sat down because I do not have good internet service where I live. I sat down with my pen, my piece of paper, and I wrote a letter to Forey J. Smith. And I accidentally sent it to the Socorro County Fairgrounds. And that man was a friend of Forey J. Smith's, and he forwarded it to him. We were driving up the road one morning. My 2 grandsons were in the back seat. There'd been a big wreck in McElmo Canyon, and it happened to be where we irrigate, and this pickup ended up in the ditch. So we went up to see what it was going to take to get it out. And Forey J. Smith calls on my car phone. And my grandsons, yip, yap, talk and holler and stuff, they heard that voice, and man, I tell you what, they quieted right down. That was in October of 2020, and in January of 2021, I proudly introduced Forey J. Smith, who plays Lloyd on Yellowstone, at the Montezuma County Fairgrounds to all of the kids at the rodeo. He did a fantastic job, and I had parents overwhelmed. So I've been known to stand up, use the phone or my pen and paper.
Maybe that's part of economic development, too. You have to use the fairgrounds. Mr. Lanier.
I think that if there's an unconstitutional law that's passed, I think the BOCC has an obligation, if it's detrimental to the county, and even if it's not, if it's an unconstitutional law, they have in my mind, they would have an obligation to declare that law null and void, or not constitutional, and not follow it.
Mr. Koppenhafer.
Well, if a law like that gets passed and we just think it's unconstitutional, that's why we have a county attorney. We can direct that county attorney to start filing, to take this to court, to get it nullified. And that's the only way you're going to get it nullified, is even if you have to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. You can get it nullified and that it's not constitutional. But that's the only way you're going to get it off the books, is to go through the judicial system and get it removed, get it declared unconstitutional, and then you don't have to follow that law. And Montezuma County's been to the Supreme Court before. It's not something that's new. I mean, we went all the way to the Supreme Court over possessory interest. Because, like, people in Mesaverde were not paying any taxes for all the sales and stuff that they were doing up there. It made us start paying on our cow permits, paying a possessory interest tax. But at least everybody had to start paying the same. Nobody was getting a pass because they were in Mesaverde National Park in this county. We had to take that all the way to the Supreme Court to get that done, but we won. But that's how you have it. Has to be through the judicial system and get it nullified if they pass an unconstitutional law.
Mr. Candelaria.
So one of the things that we do prior to the laws ever being signed by the governor is we work diligently through the legislative session. We belong to an organization called Colorado Counties Incorporated, who is somewhat of our legislative body for all 64 counties in the state of Colorado. We meet in Denver. We meet by Zoom. We look at all of the bills that are being dropped into the hopper. We vote on them. And then we fight them at the legislative session and process all of the time. Like I said earlier, we just finished a 120-day session. I testified twice this year on a couple of different bills. Testifying is one of the biggest things that you can do at the Capitol, and that's county commissioners. That's one of our jobs. That is one of the things that we do is fight for anything that's going to be detrimental to us as a county. And there were a lot of us at that state capitol this year, specifically in the last couple of weeks when Senate Bill 230 hasn't been signed by the governor, a collective bargaining bill that just outlines counties. We all fought that. We actually even did an op-ed with La Plata County, who was opposed to it also, which showed bipartisan support against the bill. But arbitrary and capricious, you know, there are a lot of things that are feel-good bills. So capricious, you know, some people may say it's not capricious. I would tend to differ on a lot of those. But like I said, we do belong to an organization. We work with the legislature, and we try to combat all of these bills prior to them ever getting implemented or signed.
Okay, down private property rights. Everybody raises that up for almost everything. If there's somebody does something, you're violating my private property rights. It's a concern, has been, and it's probably getting worse as we have new people coming in and doing things differently than we're used to. And number one, there's kind of a two-part question, really. Start off with, we use property as a word in so much of our language and issues and negotiations and talk. Probably right here, reason why we're trying to do this is we use words and what you hear and what I hear and what I think it means and what you think it means is different. Use the same words with different meanings to everybody. Speaking of property, number one, what do you understand property to be as we're relating to our property rights? And how can the county commission protect personal property rights from the government and maybe even from my neighbor? I see we're down to Mr. Lanier.
Well, property to me, private property is something you own or control. That's privately owned, not a government permit, but something that's privately owned you may rent from somebody else. As far as how to protect, our private property rights, I think we need to keep in mind that we need to let these people do what they want within reason on their property. You know, they don't need to have a permit if they want to change the color of their house or put a new roof on or build a barn. I think that's their right, and they're privileged to do that if they want. We need to make sure we don't overregulate that. As far as people moving in, you know, you hear of people moving in from another area and they want, all of a sudden they want the same thing that they moved from, so they try to impose that here on their neighbors that have been there for a long time. And I don't think that's right. You know, if I don't think we should be allowed to do something that's detrimental to our neighbor, but we do need to let them operate and do whatever they want with their private property and try and make a living with that.
Mr. Koppenhafer?
Well, private property, you know, basically, private property is property that's owned by an individual, not by some government entity or set aside for some other purpose. If your private property, you're paying taxes on it, and it's assessed just like everybody else in the area, and as long as you keep paying those taxes and can pay for your property, it belongs to you. And as long as you follow the land use code that was passed by the rest of the people in this county, you should be able to do what you want to with your property, as long as you can meet those requirements in the land use code that all of us agreed on. We may not have all voted for it, but it's what the majority of the people in this county voted for, and we need to follow that with our private property and use that code to protect your property, because you can do that.
Mr. Candelaria?
Okay, we deal with this all the time also. Everybody wants to come and say, I can do anything and I can do it all of the time. Well, that's actually not the actual case. We do have to follow the land use code, and your right cannot take somebody else's right away. So, for instance, your neighbor, by doing something that harms them because you have not complied with the land use code that was voted on by the people, one of the ways that we govern, that was given to the Board of County Commissioners by the people to say, this is what we voted on, this is what we will govern by. So your right does not take away somebody else's right, and we deal with that as far as land use. Other than that, you do have the opportunity to move forward on your property falling within that code of compliance, and you should be able to do anything that you want. So we stand up for property rights all of the time, as long as they do not take away somebody else's property. And I think that's the biggest misnomer that's out there, is I can just do anything I want. It doesn't matter what my neighbor says, but there is a code that we do have to go by. That was voted on by the people that we govern by.
Ms. Tozier?
Yes, I agree with the land use code. If it goes with the land use code, people should be able to do with what they want with their own land. I hate to see a lot of agricultural land be subdivided, because I think agriculture is very important to this community and stuff, but it's their property and they can do with it what they want, as long as you don't step on someone else's toes and don't put a feedlot in next door to me. I'll be happy.
Shucks, that's what I was going to do. I was going to have a pig farmer down there.
Yeah, no. We don't like them in McElmo.
Is there a limit? Seriously, is there a limit to, I can't put a pig farm in next door?
No.
Even
I
if
had a
I
real bad-
deodorizers?
I had a real bad experience with pigs we won't talk about, okay?
Okay, we have just had 2 years of government shutting down lives and economy over a crisis. We won't argue about whether it was real or not. How do you think the county should prepare and handle for the next crisis. There will be one. We can almost guarantee you. Don't know what it'll be, but things are building, and there will be another crisis of some kind. Maybe it's a fire, or maybe it's another health thing, or whatever. We don't know. Economic. So how do you think the county should prepare and handle the next crisis? Mr. Candelaria, I think you're up.
Okay, well, first of all, we have a fantastic emergency manager who we hired right in the beginning of COVID and has done a great job for us. I think that Montezuma County fared very well, and we were prepared probably better than most. So what are we doing right now? We just established a brand new emergency operation plan, which is countywide, and that deals with fire, flood, pandemic, whatever else that you can see in there that might come in front of us. The emergency operation plan has just been updated. Well, not just, it's been, a couple months prior to Gerald. But that is in play, and that is out there right now. So if you haven't seen it, you can go to our county website and you can look at it. If you're caught in a fire, have a go bag. Be ready to go. If you have a lot of agricultural animals, know what you're going to do with those. Be prepared, because a lot of the personal responsibility goes back to you and what you want to do and what you need to do with your properties. Animals are your property. So an emergency operation plan is out there. It's updated. And again, we have an emergency manager that goes around and is doing a phenomenal job here in Montezuma County.
Okay, Ms. Tozier.
I think through the pandemic here, I really have to commend the commissioners. I think they did a fantastic job not shutting down anything any more than they had to. And we made it through, I think, pretty well. I think that it's really good having this emergency manager writing a plan, and I am going to go get a copy of that, read it. But I think that we need to continue to be our individual selves and to do what's best for our citizens of our community.
Mr. Lanier.
You know, it's good that the county has an emergency plan, an emergency coordinator, but if it really gets desperate, the county's not going to be able to provide a lot of services for very long. And it is up to the individuals. I think there's different groups that could work with the county. They could coordinate private groups, churches, you know, and find out what resources would be available, because the county or any government, notoriously, they're not able to provide emergency relief immediately. Maybe the county could a little bit, but a lot of others can't. But we need to stress to the people that they need to be prepared themselves. They need to have the resources built up and saved to sustain themselves until help can arrive, or for long term, either one.
Okay. We're going to start up with Jim this time, I guess, aren't we?
I think I started last time.
You started last time.
Ms. Tozier.
Oh, okay, I've got this. Okay. Yeah.
Gerald?
Gerald.
Oh, yeah, I didn't answer the last one if you want me to.
There you go.
I mean, having an emergency plan like we have at the county and keeping it updated all the time is probably one of the best resources we have as far as what we can do if we do have another emergency or a large fire or whatever. We've got that set up where we have a plan as to how to start handling that and how to coordinate between the different agencies that'll be responding, whether it's the sheriff and the fire departments or whoever's responding to it, whether it's our health department, whatever. As long as we got a plan where we can coordinate the different agencies to work together, we can that's how we can handle it. Because it takes all people on board whenever those things break out. And so it's always a challenge. But having a resource, just like we have the fairgrounds, if we have a large fire and people need to move their animals, we can set those panels up and we can set some stalls up there and hold their animals and stuff for them. We can take them to Selborne. We work out a plan to get this stuff done. So that's what having this plan in place will coordinate all that to make it work for the county. And that gets all the different agencies working together and what their role is. And we have that defined in our plan so that we know who's going to do what.
Okay, you started last time. Get my notes right here. Disclosure. Let's get in more philosophical maybe. What do you believe is the biggest problem in the county that needs to be dealt with and corrected if necessary? And how would you propose to correct it, fix it?
Well, I'm pretty happy with this county. I think they've done an amazing job. I hear people, since I decided to do this, I've had people say that their road's not fixed right, or they want pavement, or they want to be able to have things like they did when they lived in California and stuff, but that's not here. I think that what we're going to be faced with right now is the economy and how we're going to have the money to provide the services for the people, and what we're going to have to cut, because it's a given thing that there are going to be things that are going to have to be cut to get through this, and just hope and pray that this doesn't continue too long. I have no idea. Do you know how long this is going to last? Nobody does.
No, they don't. Mr. Lanier?
I don't know in my mind that I could specify the biggest problem, but I think we have several big problems. Housing is a problem. I hear from people that teachers can't find affordable housing. The district here is not able to pay what they can in other places. We have trouble keeping teachers. So affordable housing for teachers or the jobs that are here. There's individuals that I've talked with that say that they would like to work with the county, with the different organizations, and they have some solutions to help mitigate the housing problem. Economics, which we've talked about quite a bit already. I think there's another problem we have in the county. It's dry. We're facing a drought. We may have to learn to farm different. We'll have to look at our water resources and where the water goes. The drug problem. It's getting bigger. And that's a hard one to control because we don't control the borders. We get the problems, and we're not able to stop it. But we have to try and find solutions and fight this problem in the county. I think we need to make sure that Sheriff's Department has all the resources, as much resources as they can, not all that they want, but as much as we can give them to help stop this problem and help shut down the gangs that are here. I think as this goes on, it's going to become a threat to more and more people in this county, and we need to make sure that we do what we can to stop that for the people. We need to provide for the safety of the people in the county as much as we can.
Mr. Koppenhafer?
Well, I think if you did a survey out here, the majority of the people would say that their biggest concern is the roads all over this county, which to me is not. To me, the biggest concern is going to be our financial base, how we're going to sustain that, into the future. That's the biggest concern to me in Montezuma County right now is our financial base and how it's going to sustain itself into the future.
Mr. Candelaria.
I will have to echo exactly what Gerald just said. I mean, we do have a lot of issues and problems within the county. I mean, it was mentioned, affordable housing, which we don't control. The county does not control affordable housing. That's private industry. There are a lot of other things that we do work with, specifically the Sheriff's Department, the Drug Task Force. Those things we control, but to really echo Gerald's point is our financial stability. With inflation costs increasing, our inflation is going up and our revenue is going down, and it just doesn't work. The arrows have to go together, and we don't control inflation right now. So that truly is going to be our biggest issue to deal with, first of all, and how do we even live within that with the finances that we have.
I'm going to just enter one little thing here. I didn't have this down, but comments makes me want to ask the question. Is one of the big issues brought up water? That's connected to our economy. It's our lifeblood. And I mentioned at the start that we don't have very much. Everybody thinks we do, but we don't. We were dry farmers until we got irrigation in here. And so the interesting part about it is in our county, I mentioned we're larger than some states as a county, but yet our water, which is literally our lifeblood, is controlled almost exclusively by the federal government, which has no responsibility under our laws. They're a separate entity. It presents a problem. Any thoughts? I'll just put it to thoughts on how we can better gain better control of and better input in the management of our watersheds. As we're dependent upon that, and everybody else wants our water. They want it down the river. We need to keep the water right here and use it beneficially. And I see, driving in tonight, we're wasting, in many cases, we're wasting water. And yet we know that how precious it is here. We don't have very much of it, but yet we're still wasting. And we have no control over getting down to the lake. It's all somebody else's control. I don't know that there's an answer, but I would like to hear from you guys, your thinking on it. What can be done for the county to have better control of the watershed and water resources that belongs in the county and that we need desperately? And where did I end? Liz, start off with Mr. Lanier.
There's probably been more fights over water than anything over the history of the country here. As far as getting water laws changed, I think that has to be done through the courts. We need to make sure that we don't sell our water rights, that we don't allow other entities to come in and buy them. That needs to stay here. But as far as water law, that's been set, and if that changes, that needs to be done, in my opinion, through the courts. We don't have control. We can't say we want to keep it, and if somebody else has the rights, prior rights, even though it's not fair, that's the way it is.
Mr. Koppenhafer.
Well, Colorado has a priority system, and if you have that water right, it's It's a private property right that you own. And as long as you are using that for the proper use and on the land that it's decreed for, you have the right to use it. And that's the way Colorado law is. It should control the water in the state of Colorado because there is no navigable rivers in the state of Colorado. So all the water in the state of Colorado actually should be controlled by the state. If you actually go by the waters of the U.S. law, the state of Colorado should control all waters that are not navigable. And none of them in Colorado are. So the state of Colorado should control all the water in the state as far as the priority system and going through. As far as what the county can do, it can support the different irrigation companies in this area and try to get them to make sure that all of their use of the water is in compliant with Colorado law and make sure that we're not wasting it or using it for use that it's not decreed for. It's one of the biggest things is if you're not using it for the right decreed use, then you stand a chance of losing that water right. And we went through all of our stuff out at MVI and tried to ensure that we have all the proper things in place where this water that we have here as a resource can't be sold out of this area or taken out of this area. You can't take the right away from people 100%, but you can make it really hard for them to try to move any of this water out of this area. And that's what we've done. We've tried to make it as hard as we can so that they cannot take that resource out of this area. I think that's one of the biggest things that most of the water companies around here need to be doing too in the future is to make sure that they've got everything in place because it's going to be a continuous battle from now on over our water. And you better be ready.
Mr. Candelaria?
I think the first thing that I want to make everybody aware of is that Montezuma County does not control water. We are not a water company. We do not have any water systems. We do not control any water. However, we do have a couple of representatives that work for us, volunteer for us, whatever you want to call it, that represent the county on different, the Southwest Roundtable at different water boards so that they can keep us up to speed with what's going on in the water world. Again, however, we do not control any water. What we do control, like I stated earlier, is we have a noxious weed department that works on the phreatophytes to get rid of the suckers of water, and that's the best thing we can do is conservation and work with the conservation that we have because Montezuma County, like other counties, do not control any water. Those are all within the water companies.
I think it's a good thing that we do have the weed control and stuff because there is a lot of tamarisk and there's a lot of Russian olives in McElmo Canyon and it does suck it dry. You can see that especially this year. And I think that's something we can do as a county to help the water flow. We have the priority system, and I actually thought the water in Colorado belonged to stayed in Colorado, but it really doesn't, does it? It goes on.
Water actually belongs to the state.
It does, but it goes on out of the state. Yeah.
So it crosses that state line.
Yeah, right down by me. Yeah, not this year though. There's none going this year, but water is very precious, and it always has been, and that's that. The reason why Cortez was built was because of the water project from the Dolores River over here. There would be no Cortez because there's no other way to get water here. There's no live water right here in basically in Montezuma County, except maybe a little bit from McElmo Creek, maybe, Hartman Draw. But it's a very touchy subject, and I live in the heart of water fighting country. And it gets really, really serious. And I can see both sides of it, but people have got to realize there's only so much to go around, and especially this year, I mean, there's just not very much water, period. And we need to keep all we can.
No answer. There's no good answer. Pray for rain.
Exactly. I had one lady ask me at a meeting I went to, she stood up and she said, I want to know exactly what you're going to do about the drought. And I just stood there and I said, I don't believe I understood your question. And she repeated it, and I said, all I can do is pray for rain. And she did not like my answer. I guess she thought that I turned a spigot on somewhere. I don't know.
Well, let's give us, people probably getting sore sitting in their chairs. Isn't here, I'll go to Mr. Koppenhafer to start it off with, I think. Do you have any personal vision of what you would like to see for Montezuma County? What is it?
I would like to see Montezuma County stay rural, and if we have development, I would like to see it kept closer around the cities and keep our open spaces and agriculture in this area. A lot of people don't realize, but the agriculture industry in this county is huge, because almost everything that we produce in agriculture, whether it's the cattle I sell or hay that Tim sells, whenever it leaves out of this country, the money comes back here. It's all produced right here, but when it leaves, that money's coming back into this county. And that's a huge thing. It makes a big difference in the economics of this county. I'd like to see that continue. It's been really rough on cattle producers, hay producers with this drought, because our numbers are way down in the cattle, and they're sure we're way down in this last year with the hay production and everything else out north. So it's a challenge, but I want to see the agriculture base in this community to stay. And that's what I think. If we can keep that here, we can keep the people have a lot more values and work ethic that you don't have in a lot of other places.
Mr. Candelaria.
Okay, when I started this 4 years ago, when I was running for county commissioner and then elected, I had talked about my 5 E's, and I will continue to do those. And that's economy, education, environment, entrepreneurship, and engagement. Number one, the biggest one is the engagement, is because by engagement, whether it's at the state level, the national level, or here at the local level with CDOT and the municipalities, I think that's the greatest thing that we can do to get things done. I'm a man of action. I get things done. I deal with facts, figures, and that's how I will continue to move this county forward. I have the proven leadership. Dealing with COVID was a blueprint that nobody had, and it was one of the hardest times of my life. But I definitely have it underneath me now, and have the leadership to continue to move those 5 E's forward.
I truly believe that agriculture is the backbone of Montezuma County. It always has been, and it's just, I think it's continued to grow. I don't like to see subdivisions go in, but there we got private rights, so private property rights and stuff. But, you know, I think that in the rural community, there's a different kind of, I don't know what you say, attitude towards things. The kids have a different attitude. I'd like to see this a place where our kids want to, go off to school, come back, get involved in agriculture or whatever. Gerald's daughter went to college. She's back here. She's veterinarian. I know another girl that's same thing. She's starting veterinary school this fall, and she plans to come back. I think that's great. We have a lot. The 4-H program has grown here immensely, and the agriculture part of it, the animals and stuff, and I think that that's our strong point here. People like a quiet, laid-back lifestyle, and that's kind of what we have to offer. And like Gerald said, keep the growth around the cities, the towns and stuff. Leave the country alone. Open space, that's one thing I hear from a lot of people, the open space here. But I think that agriculture is the backbone, and I would really like to see it. Maybe there's a few things I think that we need to add to our agriculture. We need a good packing plant facility. I know there's a new one that's probably going to go in south of town, and that's great, but we need one that handles cattle locally for people. When my husband and I, we butcher beef every year. I have to take it to New Mexico because there's no place around here that I can ever get in to get one butchered here. You know, I think that that's a great need in this community. But agriculture is very important. Thank you.
Mr. Lanier.
Well, I too believe in agriculture, that it is the backbone of this community. Everybody has to eat. And there's a lot of interest in regenerative agriculture, looking for better ways to grow crops and preserve water, to stop the wind and soil the wind erosion of the soil. We grow a good product here. We need to exploit that. You know, the high altitude alfalfa, when it goes to these dairies, they prefer that over a lot of the other areas of the alfalfa because it tastes better to the cows. It's gives them more nutrients for their milk. You know, I would like to see the county and the three cities, Dolores, Cortez, and Mancos, and I know they're working. I would like to see that continue to happen, where they continue to work together, because we are one county. We're not different entities. We're all one people here, and the tribe in Toyoc. I guess if I had one specific goal or vision in mind, it would be to make this county a desirable place for everybody to be able to live here and make a living here through economic development. We don't control the weather, but we may have to learn to live with it the way it is.
Any last remarks anybody like to make? Closing? Raise your hands. Vote for me or whatever. Any remarks you'd like?
I want to thank you for the opportunity to do this. I was really nervous about this today, but I think that a lot of good things have come out, and I don't think any one of the four of us are that far apart from each other. I think we all have the same goals for Montezuma County, and like I say, I want to thank you for doing this.
Thank you for coming. Anybody else?
I would also thank you, these things are never pleasant. I don't think none of us are that far apart from each other. But one thing that I do want to, and I kind of thought that it would probably be brought up, but like I said earlier, government was really set up for commerce and defense, and broadband has been a huge discussion in a lot of arenas. Is it government's place to provide broadband? Is it not? Well, that actually, through COVID, we saw that our kids could not even be educated because everybody was living off of a laptop and doing their homework. So I feel that broadband now has become that utility that infrastructure that we do help fund and that we do spend money on, and we have done that in Montezuma County. Whether we like it or not, our kids are living by laptops. They probably know more about Zoom than everybody over 60 years old. Let me tell you, it was a challenge, and we both, Commissioner Koppenhafer and I, were both on Zoom meetings today. So it is something that's paramount, and whether you believe in it or not, it is an infrastructure that is being built, and everybody is using it. So just a clarification there that defense and commerce is a big thing, and that's really what government was designed to do.
I'm even had to learn to do Zoom. It's tough for an old man like me. A little bit of time, just a little bit.
It's tough, but it is an infrastructure that is being utilized. I mean, look what we're doing here tonight. You wouldn't do this a decade ago, not even 5 years ago, but look what we can do tonight because we have it and because it's being built. So just a clarification that, some of that we are going to fund, we are going to take care of, and we are going to utilize.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight also. And a lot of what's been said here, or most of it, I do agree with. And I appreciate the concern of the people of this community in letting us know what their concerns are, whether they can all be fixed or not. But it is good to hear what people are concerned about and what they want changed. This has been a good experience for me to be able to get out and do this and visit with the people. And I appreciate the group here tonight and their support of the community, their support of the Constitution.
Well, I want to thank these three people that are sitting up here with me for putting themselves out there and devoting part of their life to help with Montezuma County, and hopefully whoever gets elected this time will be able to bring this county forward and develop it like it should be in a way that we can all live here happily, and that'll be the best thing. And I think the people of Montezuma County are good about selecting candidates and doing their diligence to vote, and I think the people will make a decision, and I think it'll be good. So.
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming, and for people that's watching, 912 does not support or endorse any candidate for any office. Our purpose for tonight, and always has been, is to gather information, make it available from you, you four here, to the public, and they make the decision for themselves, because every one of us has a different idea of what's right and what's wrong. There's no right or wrong answers here tonight. It's everybody's what's right in my eyes and what's right in your eyes. That's what they decide, and the people from this information, hopefully this is good information that everybody can reach out. Is it fair to say that you're available if anybody wants to pick up the phone and say, what did you say the other night? Does that make sense? Why should I vote for you, for crying out loud? Are you open to receive calls for that?
I can tell you as a seated county commissioner along with Commissioner Koppenhafer, our phones are listed. They are open. I took 2 calls before we started this meeting tonight. So I can assure you people do not have a problem reaching out, and our phones are listed.
I found that out too. I have a landline phone, and I also have my cell phone, and people have my cell phone, and how they got it, I really don't know, but a lot of people do. I know it's passed around and stuff, and I'm happy to hear from them, because I don't know what they're thinking unless they tell me, and I want to try. I want to be a good listener and have people talk to me and see if there is a problem that we can avoid again, find a solution to. Do you want our phone numbers?
Do you want to give it out?
Fine, my cell phone number's 970-560-1129.
Give her a call, guys.
I'm fine to take calls. I enjoy talking with people. My number's 970-560-1164.
What was that again? 970
560
560
1164.
1164. And you guys are on,
We are
you're all listed.
all over. We are all over.
Yep.
You can find ours real easy on any of the county websites.
And I happen to know, I hear all the time how many phone calls you guys get. So they have your number. But yeah. Right.
Correct.
Yeah. When you've registered for candidates, you're on the Secretary of State's website. So anybody that's supposedly, if it's valid on there, they can just go on the internet and go to the Secretary of State and the candidates for office in Montezuma County, and your listing and all your information is there. So all of you listening, don't go on innuendos and I hear and whatever else. Get the straight information. Hope this was helpful to everybody, and we want to thank all of you for coming, being willing to put up with our little questions and answers, but hopefully the idea was to get information that a lot of people are not aware of and how important the county's office is. It's a changing world, and it's not, again, like I said at the beginning, just a little cow town out there that no big deal. It's a big deal, and how important what we're facing in the future is very important. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for listening, and vote for your conscience for who is going to fill that job to move the county forward as a unified county, not a separated out county. Thank you. Good night.